13th day of February 2023. I hope you had a good night's sleep and you're ready to face the week. Now, welcome on board. This is Morning Cafe. I'm Stanley Iringita, standing in for Linda Alela. Now, a day like today, 6 months ago, the country was witnessing a changeover in the government. William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua took to the podium in Kasarani Stadium, hand on Bible, took their oaths as president and deputy, respectively. 6 months later, what is the trajectory of the Kenya Kwanza government? That will form the meat of a conversation this particular morning. Among other matters, weekend politics, insecurity in the country, and you can always chime in the conversation on our socials below your screens. But first, let's dig into the papers this morning, and we do start with the Daily Nation. I'll be taking you through the Standard, obviously, and the People Daily. And on the Daily Nation, bold there says auctioned 1,062. This is the number of registered companies that closed down between July 2022 and December 2022. Tough times. More and more Kenyans are losing their valued assets, vehicles, pieces of land, houses and household goods as landlords, banks, suckers, shylock's and online lenders go after them for defaulting on loans and payments. The high cost of living, highlighted by the runaway inflation, is not making life any better for borrowers. And for many Kenyans, it is just a matter of when, not if, the auctioneers will come knocking. The story is extensive on page 7, a particular story that majority of Kenyans do relate with on matters being auctioned, their properties and all that. And on the left side, there's something that will form a conversation this particular morning, matters insecurity. Police deaths in a Turkana bandit attack rises to 4. This is the confirmed number of deaths around that particular area. This is after Thursday's attack. Over 300 bandits attacked multi-agency security team, and quite shocking numbers right there, and we'll be discussing all that. And below, Ruto defends quoting rival MPs, says he is on a unity drive. Now, President William Ruto has insisted his Kenya Kwanza administration is keen to incorporate everyone, including his competitors, in uniting the country, and rejected claims he is wrecking the opposition. This story is extensive on page 4. And what does Riley say? So Riley says, show us how you have spent 800 billion Kenyan shillings taxes. Raila tells Ruto. The story is extensive on page 5. Let's go over to page 4 real quick. I'm out to unite Kenyans, not to scuttle opposition, Ruto says. So President William Ruto recently held meetings at State House, Nairobi, with the lawmakers from Jubilee and ODM parties. Even this as Raila Odinga, who is the Azimio leader, saying that you know what, you are rebels and you shouldn't be in ODM. We'll be taking a look at how all those particular intricates will be playing. And still on page 4, controversy. Kega insists that Jubilee is keen on working with the Kenya Kwanza government. And you remember on Friday there was a whole change-up in the Jubilee party with some members being ousted and others being replaced, and the whole, the pack of it, and the leadership being changed. And still on page 4, Muthama set to join House Welfare team. This is former Machakos Senator Johnson Muthama has been nominated to be a member of the PSC. Remember, Senator Muthama, the former senator, said that he had resigned from active politics. And on page 5, explain spending. Raila tells President. Treasury PS Chris Kiptor said the amount between July and November 2022 fell short of the target. According to Mother Karua, who is the NAK Kenya leader, a quote there says, "We are fighting for the rights of Kenyans. The country has enough money to feed Kenyans, educate children, and offer medical care." And not much as the 13th Parliament, which is set to actually resume tomorrow. On page 6, cash crunch to hunt bottom-up plan execution, Ruto warned. So some numbers there, 2.6 trillion Kenyan shillings, what it will cost to fully implement the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, according to the Parliamentary Budget Office. And this morning we'll be taking a look at that with the sharpest of minds to see. Is this, how is the president walking a tightrope in ensuring and having these particular numbers built up? Kenya Kwanza manifesto proposes heavy investment in roads, SMEs, education and agriculture. And now to matters insecurity on page 8. Aftermath, 7 officers were injured and 4 police vehicles torched in the Naipemoit attack that is in Turkana. Political leaders call on the government to deploy their military, saying the police have failed to curb insecurity. Right, and we'll be discussing more on that particular story. Now to the back page of the Daily Nation before we get to the bold newspaper, The Standard. House budget team warns Ruto IMF reforms will hurt economy. So according to the Parliamentary Budget Office, it says that the cut in state spending will lead to lower output. And you can take a look at that particular story on the back page of the Daily Nation. I can see at on matters page 43, Manchester City close in on leaders Arsenal as info Manchester United silence. Poor Leeds United, one particular story I'd love to see this beautiful Monday morning. Now let's cross over to The Standard, shall we? Ruto on path to absolute power. This is a bicameral parliament right there. President William Ruto's plan to control parliament is evident with moves to co-opt members from the opposition, with the House resuming tomorrow and now with a supermajority. It will be a walk in the park for the president on passing legislation and blocking oversight. This story is on page 4, but then before we get to page 4, real quick, still on the front page, Raila dares IEBC to open servers for poll audit, and quick arrest warrants out for officials. That is on matters the world, page 27, and Russia oil cut to raise fuel prices. That is matters business, and in matters sports, Ateta, that is Mikel Arteta, refs changing EPL rules. Quite interesting, page 40, right? And now to page 3, matters international news. Quite shocking news, and even as the country is still, mourning and sending condolences to Turkey. Many buildings in southern Turkey were wiped out of existence. Last week, in the days after the quake, the friends and family gathered round Orkan, hoping for the best. This even as the number of the fatalities just keeps increasing. Quite sad state of affairs right there. And hopefully, years to come, Turkey will overcome this. Now to page 4. And the Standard has crunched some particular numbers. It is a balance of power in the National Assembly. You can take a look at all those particular parties, and we'll be having one of our guests who is a party leader to just understand the intricacies of a party in the National Assembly or the Senate. How important is it to have all that? And you can take a look at that, 349, that is the total number of members in the National Assembly. You do have Azimio, the power gymnastics in-house after State House visits, and Ruto's plan to soar up numbers as House sittings resume tomorrow. And you do have some quotes there. Opiyo Ndai, who is a Gunja Member of Parliament and Minority Leader in the National Assembly, says Azimio is not interested in amendment of the Constitution. We are interested in how the Kenya Kwanza will lower the cost of living. And Kimani Ichung'wah, Majority Leader and Kikuyu Member of Parliament, says the supplementary budget is very crucial to government. That is why we are keen on having committees complete their work. Mwingi Mutuse, the Justice Committee Vice Chairman, says he says Parliament will debate proposals by the President before it is decided whether the parliamentary initiative or popular vote will be used. Quite interesting intricacies in the National Assembly and the Senate, even as we wait for them to resume tomorrow. On page 5, Hope's Devolution Forum seeks revenue consensus. Remember, the President, William Ruto, had met governors and in Nakuru to just discuss matters, devolution, how, the funds will be, the county funds will be distributed, and so that, developments can actually start. President and county chiefs come up with 23 resolutions to boost devolution. However, the summit failed to agree on issues around equitable share of revenue. One interesting thing that we'll be taking a look at, and remember, even as we take a look at taking stock 6 months after the Kenya Kwanza administration kicked off, and work with President to grow economy as Azimio supporters challenge. That is on matters page 5. Real quick before we go to the People Daily, do have page 6 and page 6. Whole page 6 of the Standard is matters politics, how Azimio vows to publish genuine election results. And on matters on the left side of page 6, Jubilee Party, UDA, are brothers and will work together, assures Ruto. Right. On matters page 8, a whole special report there. On matters page 10, how Parliament must look at states' plans first, then budget follows. Right, and finally, matters sports there do have Ateta accuses officials of changing the rules. Real quick there. All right. Okay, you can take a look at that particular story on back page of the Standard. Right, let's take a look at what the People Daily says. And on the front page says congestion hits JSS classrooms. This is the junior secondary schools. Teething problems, failure to prove some public schools to offer grade 7 high cost of private education courses. And this story is on page 2 and 3. And also on the left side of the front page of the People Daily, raise tax spending, budget team says, and you have the photo of the Cabinet Secretary of Treasury, Professor Njuguna Ndungu. There's some numbers crunched there just for you to take a look at. Matters education, the 1.2 million, this is the number of grade 6 learners who sat the Kenya primary school education assessment last year. 100%. The government wants all learners who sat grade 6 exams to join JSS. But not all schools were approved for JSS. Quite interesting there. 15,000 amount government has allocated for every JSS learner in public schools, something that even the private school parents who have the children in private schools are lamenting about. Why we being left behind? And 15 to 45, this is the ideal number of learners in a classroom. Many junior secondary classrooms, however, have more than 75 students. 150, this is the number of grade 7 learners in some congested classrooms. That is according to Head Teachers Association boasts. And finally, 300 number of JSS learners admitted to Kongowea Primary in Mombasa. The school has 5 JSS teachers. Quite worrying numbers there. Indeed, as these particular numbers show, are there teething problems in matters JSS. And still on matters People Daily, away from matters education, PBO cautions on state spending cuts. The story is on page 5 of the People Daily. Budget Office says deep cut in government expenditure in the global recession could be counterproductive, suspending cut fears. PBO urged government to consider injecting money into the financial system, says reducing government expenditure. And also the National Treasury, in a press statement, reiterated that the government has attained its goal of cutting spending by 300 billion Kenyan shillings. And below there, Atoli welcomes implementation of the new NSSF monthly employment rates. You can take a look at that story on page 5 below there. Right, and one final one. Still in matters elections and the weekend politics. Raila challenges electoral body to allow server audit. That story is on page 6. You can take a look at that. And page 7, Ruto, I don't need any permission to work with any Kenyan. And 15 minutes past the top of the hour, let's get into what is happening in the world. Now, in a tough talking tone, President William Ruto has sent a stern warning to the bandits terrorizing residents in the North Rift, stating that Interior CS Kithure Kindiki should set base in the affected areas until a cessation of the banditry is witnessed. This follows the killing of 4 police officers in Kanuk, Turkana South on Thursday. Take a look. The silence in this deserted part of Kainuk, Turkana County, is loud. The only sounds we can hear as we visited the region is of livestock, a few people conversing from a distance, or trucks traversing on this road. A clear indication of the state of insecurity that has crept in on the better part of Turkana South. Filled with fear, residents living here have opted to vacate their homes and look for safer grounds.
Biashara sasa haiendelei, wasafiri wanafunzi hawaendi shule kwa sababu kama Kenya ni Kenya, watoto wanatoka hapa wakienda Kitale, wakienda shule, wakienda Eldoret, barabara ni moja.
Pokoti usiku wanatusungukia usiku. Sasa tuko na wasiwasi, saa yote hatukai vizuri, tunakaa tukiwa na wasiwasi.
According to the County Commissioner, Jacob Auma, the government has stepped up measures to deal with the incessant attacks by deploying more security officials to the entire county.
We are committed to ensuring that Turkana East is pacified. We have deployed and will continue deploying. Turkana South, we have had an operation all through the game reserve and we have kicked out the illegal herders that have been flushed out. We have no apologies to make to anybody. We must have order.
For area leaders like Turkana South MP John Eriko, however, the attacks are a ploy to grab the Turkana land. This even as he called upon President William Ruto to have more officers on the ground and prevent more deaths.
Your policemen were killed. The guys we depended upon were killed. We have lost lives. We have lost 4 policemen by yesterday.
Kuna janga ilitokea kule Kainuk Turkana, tulipoteza maafisa wa usalama na tumekuwa na shida ya hiyo Kerio, Your Excellency. Tunataka kukuomba kama amiri jeshi mkuu, hawa polisi wako huko pia wasaidiwe na ndege ili waweze kupambana na hiyo machangili.
Mwambia Professor Kindiki atoke ofisi Nairobi, aende aishi kule North Rift mpaka hiyo mambo ya wananchi kupoteza maisha yao iishe.
And as the government continues to bolster its efforts in dealing with the bandits, elders, women and children can only hope for a better and safer tomorrow. And still on matters security, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki has issued a strong warning to administrative officers who engage in political activities. He reported having received reports of administration police officers who have neglected their duties and joined political functions. Kindiki made the statements during the official opening of the Deputy County Commissioner's office in Kitui North. This story was produced by Andrew Juma.
Addressing locals in Kitui East, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki asked all administration officers to avoid taking part in all political functions.
Umesikia Mheshimiwa Rais amesema hataki maafisa wa serikali waingiane na mambo ya siasa. Siasa iko na wanasiasa, iko na MCAs, iko na MPs, iko na governors. Na rais yeye mwenyewe amesema hako na timu yake ya kumsaidia kufanya siasa. Si yako na MCA.
Kindiki also promised to tackle the insecurity issues here in Kitui, especially the conflict between locals and camel herders.
Hii mambo usalama ni mambo ambayo inafaa kuanza kwa grassroots. Na wewe mwenyewe tukao pale kwa mkutano umetuambia unataka localized solutions but with implementation of the national government. Sisi kama watu hapa chini tutakusaidia kupata localized solutions.
The Cabinet Secretary also promised to issue 257 firearms to local police reservists to provide security in the area, urging them to use the weapons appropriately without misusing them.
If we issue guns, government guns, and we discover some of the people we have issued to do not meet the criteria of staying with those guns, tutaendelea kubadilisha. If we find that there is somebody ambaye ana misuse hiyo silaha, tutatoa, we replace with another person.
Kindiki also added the government will, as from Monday, bring relief food to help in mitigating drought effects in the area.
Now, for the fifth time, Raila Odinga held a massive rally known as the People's Baraza to put pressure on President William Ruto's government to resign after the August 2022 general elections. Mike Kagongo reports that the former premier remains firm in his belief that the only way to dispel allegations of manipulation in the presidential election results in favor of President William Ruto is through the opening of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IBC servers.
For the fifth time, Azimio la Umoja coalition leader Raila Odinga pitched tent in Busia County, where he used the podium to ask President William Ruto to resign from the House on the Hill. After attending a church service rally Sunday in Busia town, Odinga and his allies occupied the Busia Polytechnic grounds, where they held a People's Baraza meeting with Busia County residents. Odinga insisting that his win was annulled even after defeating President William Ruto by more than 2 million votes, and he will not hesitate to fight for the interest of Kenyans who voted for him until a solution is found.
The people's voice must be respected. The people spoke through the ballot. The people voted correctly. The whistleblower has actually come out and correctly exposed how the people voted.
Odinga affirmed that time is ripe for Kenyans to know what really transpired during the vote tallying period and events that led to the declaration of President William Ruto as the eventual winner of the presidential contests. The opposition coalition also declared it has no plans to participate in reconstitution of the Electoral Commission, which is currently without substantive commissioners, following the end of term of some commissioners and resignation of others.
Here, Busia County is not an electoral unit. Electoral unit ni wards na constituencies. Ndio vizuri. Maana yake ilijua kichapisha matokeo ya kila constituency, ukweli itaonekana. Kwa hivyo yeye amechapisha tu ati counties. Naambia yeye toa ile ya constituencies. Ikitoka mtaona kwamba Bwana Ruto alishindwa. Ndio sababu sisi kwa Azimio tunasema hatutambui Bwana Ruto kama rais wa Kenya.
The ODM party leader said the coalition has distanced itself and will not work with MPs who have since embraced the idea of working with the government, pouring cold water on ODM MPs who went to State House to meet President William Ruto last week.
Anasema mimi nilienda kuongea mambo ya maendeleo ya constituency yangu.
The opposition also put pressure on the government to reverse the huge tax burden it has imposed on Kenyans. They noted that taxes make up more than half of the price of goods and more than half of the people's income. The leaders said the government should give timelines and stop what they called false promises and rhetoric.
Wamepora chakula yako, elimu ya mtoto wako, wamepora pesa yako ya matibabu.
Uwezo wote wa kikatiba, mamlaka yote ya kikatiba yako mikononi mwa wananchi. Constitution 2010 yasema hivyo.
Tunaambiwa wanatumia bilioni 20 kutangatanga nchi Kenya. Walituambia elimu itakuwa bure. Pesa ya karo ya watoto wetu ndio wanatangatanga nayo kila Jumapili.
Vijana msilale.
Odinga and his lieutenants have however postponed the rally at Gusii Stadium, which was set for Monday, February 13 to Friday, February 17th. Mike Kagongo, TV 47.
And President William Ruto is seen not to be a shaken man, despite opposition leader Raila Odinga's countrywide rallies pitting Kenyans against the Kenya Kwanza government picking pace. Ruto, while in Nakuru, recalled his road to State House in the run-up to the 2022 general elections, terming it a painful and humiliating, indicating that there's no amount of intimidation that can deter his agenda as the fifth head of state. Mwega William with more details.
President William Ruto delivered a well-crafted message to opposition leader Raila Odinga during interdenominational prayers at the Nakuru Athletics Club, expressing his disappointment with Odinga's rallies across the country, which have been rallying Kenyans against the Ruto-led Kenya Kwanza government. In his address, Ruto took the opportunity to take the attendees down memory lane and recount the tribulations he experienced under the former administration.
Kuna wale ambao wanataka kuendelea kutuweka katika minyororo ya ukabila na migawanyiko, kwamba huyu hawezi kukutana na yule, hawa hawawezi kufanya kazi na wale.
The president was quick to rubbish claims by the Azimio faction that he is going after those who opposed his presidency, adding that neither is he willing to pursue revenge against these political tormentors.
I want to say, for the avoidance of doubt, that I will work with all leaders of the Republic of Kenya that have been elected together with me to serve the people of Kenya.
We would like to ask all those of us who are mistreated and persecuted in one way or another to have a heart to forgive our tormentors, and we move forward.
The evil things that were visited on Ruto do not define his agenda. He has gone above that. He is now focused on growing this country.
Leaders accompanying the first in command for the prayer session have called on Raila Odinga and his allies not to divide the country through their anti-Ruto rallies, adding that they will not get the attention of the president as they intend to.
You can conduct all the meetings you want, lakini leo tumewaombea kwa hizo mikutano. Preach peace to the Kenyan people. Muache kugawanya wa Kenya, kwa sababu hata kama ni watu munatisha, watu wa kutisha hakuna, na haswa huyu rais wetu hatishiki.
Usiuziwe uoga kama vile mwenzetu aliuziwa uoga akakubali handshake ambayo ilitupeleka chini.
Among the leaders in the meeting was a section of Jubilee party members who had recently declared their support for Ruto's presidency, led by Yala MP Kanini Kega and nominated MP Sabina Chege.
By the mere fact that we are here, it shows that we recognize that the fifth president of the Republic of Kenya is none other than His Excellency William Samoei Ruto.
Ndio tulisema hatutaenda kwa hiyo barabara, and I want to put it in this broad daylight. Jubilee has made a decision to work with the government of His Excellency President William Ruto.
Leaders of the Kenya Kwanza have advised President Ruto not to be swayed by the Raila-led rallies and instead to firmly address those who politically persecuted him during his time as Deputy President. Mwega William, TV 47.
All right, and that particular story, the whole will be discussing on the whole Jubilee jumbles and change in matters leadership. President William Ruto has promised Kenyans a strong economy by committing to collaborate with all leaders and uniting them to drive development and spark growth in various sectors, ensuring a sustainable economy. During the National Prayer Day held at Nakuru Athletics Club in Nakuru County, the President shared his plans for value addition, agriculture and industrialization to make Kenya a surplus nation instead of a boring one. Chichi Josephine brings us more.
After his meeting with the governors in Naivasha over equitable share of revenue, Ruto said he had plans on meeting all elected leaders and share ideas towards a development that will grow country's economy, as Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru noted how the revenue will be shared.
Na vile tumeketi chini na magovernors juzi, nitaketi chini na viongozi wale wengine wote until we get to the place where our nation is a nation that we can all be proud of being Kenyans.
We agreed on exactly how the revenue will be shared. We just did not finish calculating kwa sababu ile pesa sisi tulipoa ilikuwa mingi sana. Sasa tumengojea tuende tukahesabu ndio tujue vile itakuwa imedividiwa, lakini maneno ya kuagree between the national government and the county governments, which was agreed.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said it is high time Kenyans dropped politics and started focusing on the economy of the country, as the economy is at its worst state.
Sheria ambaye rais anasema tuunde ni ya kubadilisha uchumi wa Kenya, kila mtu aweke pesa mfukoni. Ni sheria ya kutengeneza amani katika Kenya.
On his part, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi said that the Kenya Kwanza manifesto still guards the government with an agenda to change the country's economy.
You were able to capture the minds of Kenyans because you sold the agenda of bottom-up, the economic transformation agenda for this country. The short acronym is better.
Following the ongoing drought in the country, the president said as a government they have plans to distribute fertilizer and seeds to farmers immediately after the rains start as a way of dealing with hunger in Kenya.
Tumefanya mipango yote kama serikali. Tuko na mbegu, tuko na mbolea, tumepanga harakati zote za kuhakikisha kwamba tunazalisha chakula. Lakini hiyo mipango yote haiwezi kufaulu kama Mungu hatatupatia mvua. Hata wakati tunapanga mambo ya dams na mambo yale mengine, water harvesting, bado tunahitaji Mungu atusaidie na mvua ndio Kenya yetu iweze kwenda mbele na tusiangamie kwa mambo ama janga la ukame.
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
Now, meanwhile, inhabitants of Wajir and Mandera County have been compelled to move to Tana River due to the scarcity of water and pasture for their livestock. The residents, now residing in makeshift homes in Salo Ward, Bura Sub-County, reports that the severe effects of the drought in the area have forced them to walk a distance of 14 kilometers. Mandera and Wajir are among the hardest hit counties in the nation by the ongoing drought crisis.
According to the residents who are currently residing in makeshift homes in Sala Ward, Bura Sub-County, the severe drought has compelled them to travel for 14 kilometers in search of water and pasture.
Sasa tunaona ukame, gombe anakosa manyasi, anakufa yote. Zile kidogo kidogo tulikuja hapa, anakufa juu ya gari.
The residents claim that the migration caused by the drought has negatively impacted their livelihoods and has resulted in their children dropping out of school.
Watoto iko hapa msitu wanakaa, wengine hawana maziwa, wengine hawana hata ration. Naona wale waheshimiwa Wajia yote tulipatia kura, tulifanyia chochote ambaye kutoka MCA kutoka
The residents are now calling on the government to intervene in the matter as many continue losing their lives and that of their livestock. Zainab Mohammed, T47.
Now, 4 individuals are currently in custody at Bungoma Police Station on suspicion of child trafficking. This comes after a 2-month-old baby boy who had gone missing from Bungoma Referral Hospital 2 months prior was found yesterday just 3 kilometers from Bungoma town. According to our reporter Sostin Wanji, the mother of the twins, Mercy Chibet, stated that she gave birth to 2 babies via cesarean on December 5th last year and was only given her baby girl, with the baby boy disappearing in mysterious circumstances.
Ilitakana wanifanyia operation tarehe 6 wakanifanyia tarehe 5. Saa ile nilijifungua nikasikia hao madaktari walikuwa wamenipasua kitambo. Walitaka wanishoni. Mwingine akanionyesha mtoto kijana. Kaita mtoto yangu Wajokoya. Wa pili wakatoa msichana na wakamuita Queen.
This is Mercy Chebeti, the mother of the alleged stolen teen baby from Bungoma Referral Hospital 2 months ago. Chebeti reported that after cesarean delivery, she was informed that she had only given birth to 1 baby despite her feeling of delivering 2. When she raised concerns, she was told that she had only delivered 1.
Vile niliulizia mtoto, wakaniambia ati mtoto utaenda kupata wote nasari. Kufika nasari mimi sioni mtoto. Nilikaa hapo hospitali siku 3, sikupewa mtoto. Kaniambia siku ya 3 nienda sasa kunyonyesha. Kufika huko nikanionyeshwa mtoto mmoja. Kufika hapo nikauliza mwingine, wakaniambia mama ulijifungua mtoto mmoja. Na nilipata mtoto yangu huyo mmoja tu ameandika hapa kwa mkono at Baby Mercy.
Bungoma South, the DCI team has been doing investigations for the last 2 months over the matter, and at around 11 p.m. yesterday, 3 kilometers away from the police station, they found Josephine Simiyu in possession of the lost child in the company of 3 other women and a man. Among the suspects is Irene Otieno, an employee at Kimilili Sub-County Hospital who is a social worker, and Joseph Owola of Joe Medical Clinics.
Na tukafaulu kupata washukiwa 4 akiwemo daktari wa hospitali ya kibinafsi mahali mtoto alikuwa amepelekwa ili mteja mwenye alikuwa amepatikana kununua akuje kushukua.
Affirming the incident, Bungoma South OCPD Wilson Muraya says that the 4 suspects are set to be arraigned in court tomorrow, warning government employees who are engaged in child trafficking in the county.
Siku zao zimehesabiwa. Hata kama ni wafanyakazi, kwa sababu huyu mtoto inasemekana alishukuliwa kutoka kwa hospitali. Hata kama wanafanya kazi na serikali, hata kama unafanya kazi na the county government or in whatever capacity, ningeomba ya kwamba tusingatie sheria.
Wanji Sostin, TV47, Bungoma.
Now, following the Church of England's legalization of same-sex civil marriages, some priests in the country have expressed concern over the decision, viewing it as a secularization of the church and a suppression of sin. Have a look.
After a contentious debate that saw 250 vote in favor of the verdict, while 181 declined invitations to back the proposals that brought to an end a year of sharp disagreements over the matter, the Church of England has now made a significant shift away from its strict anti-homosexuality stance. Speaking during a worship experience event at Karima Prayer and Resource Center, Bishop Jane Gathoni Kirima regretted that if not arrested, some Western decisions could plunge local youths into disorder and deviate them from the African and spiritual values. A weird sense of belonging that most people end up in due to hopelessness, desperation, and poverty.
We work with youth because we want to empower youth to find their passion, to find their gifting, to find their calling, so that instead of waiting to be employed by other people, this sense of hopelessness, this being dragged into drugs and gangs, they find their passion, and through finding their passion, they would now use that passion as a means of living, as a means to make a livelihood for themselves.
Gathoni, who criticized the decision to allow same-sex marriages, regretted that lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender community from the Western countries have been sponsoring recruitment exercise in the country, a move she termed as alien and one that could drive Kenyan youths away from their moral fabric.
And so that sense of belonging, they're being drawn to that through falsehood, feeling that they belong to this new community that loves them more than their parents, which is just a lie from the pit of hell. I feel it's a very great shame, and we need to talk to them, we need to love them, we need to make them feel that they belong, so that they're drawn out of that lifestyle that many of them are using as a means of income.
To sustain Kenyan economy that has been a downward trajectory for years, Kirima proposed creations of God's Fund Kitty, that is 10% of the total revenue that the government collects, and dedicated to the youth empowerment and helping the poor. Norbert Oduor, TV 47.
Now, in response to reports that the consumption of illicit brew is becoming a major problem in the Mount Kenya region, particularly affecting the youth, a group of women in the area have initiated a campaign to help rescue addicted men and youth. They believe that urgent measures must be taken to address the issue in their region.
Days ago, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua directed county governments within the Mount Kenya region to revoke all licenses for bars and restaurants, citing a growing addiction problem in the area, particularly affecting the youth. Since the directive, a group of women in the region have joined the campaign to tackle the illicit brew disaster, with the residents claiming the region is in danger of losing men and youth through alcohol.
Women champions here have agreed to take a leading step and fight this threat, and also be the champions in the community to help eradicate this menace.
Today, Maragua Member of Parliament Mary Wamaua launched a women's group to lead the fight against illicit brews in the villages. During a meeting with women in Maragua under the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association KEWOPA, Wamaua expressed her concern over the growing problem of illicit brews in the county and stressed the need for authorities to speed up and intensify their efforts to combat this issue.
Hivyo tunaongea na uchungu tukijua kama security imelemewa, kama administration imelemewa. Sasa ni sisi wa mama tujifunge leso, tutoke na tutatoa hawa wazee wetu na vijana wetu kwa virabu.
Wamaua asked the county government to involve the liquor licensing board when renewing licenses in an effort to shut down those selling illicit brew in the villages. She also warned that if the county government fails to take action, she'll join forces with the residents to destroy those illegal establishments.
Kamati ya liquor licensing ambao iko na DCC, iko na OSPD, iko na OCS, juu wao ndio watawachwa wakireinforce virabu ziwekwe kwenye zinatakikana, ndio tupitishe kirabu ni gani na itawekwa wapi na ni pombe gani na yuzwe mazaa ile inafaa.
Collins Lusweti, TV 47.
Now, meanwhile, Mount Kenya University, Rwanda, that is MKUR, has launched a book that documents its journey in the country and the success it has recorded over the years. The book launch took place as the university in Rwanda marked 13 years since it started operations in Rwanda as one of the institutions of higher learning in the country. The book, titled Mountain Meets Land of 1,000 Hills, traces the history of the university founder and chairman, Professor Simon Gisharu, in secondary school. Gisharu befriended a teacher who hailed from Rwanda, and the friendship sowed the seeds of his interest in education in Rwanda. The Mountain Meets a Land of 1,000 Hills is a 200-page story about two countries coming together for the sake of education. At the launch of the memoir, the university management announced plans to open a hospitality training hotel, which will be called Kigali Paramount Hotel, and which is under construction. Right, so 43 minutes past the top of the hour. I want us to get into the whole discussion, but first let me introduce the guests. Okay, I believe at this point you are Nyinyi Wenyejuk. Professor Fred Gola on my immediate right. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you, and happy Valentine's week.
Indeed, and how are things shaping up? How are the headlines this particular morning?
I think Kenya, the headlines in Kenya are getting worse every day. And if you can ask me to use one word to describe the state of the nation, we find the state of the nation is abandoned. And the verification is that you can find that Honorable Prime Minister is running around in rallies, People's Baraza, trying to say he's addressing cost of living, among other those claims he's making. On this side, the president has joined him in what is called Thanksgiving prayer rallies. So none of those ones are arenas for addressing real issues. And that's what I'm trying to say, that the voters who voted for the two of them, plus those who didn't vote, Kenya is abandoned. That's why the headlines are just saying auctioned here. People are talk about pending bills. 603 billion pending bills, meaning taxes are being collected, no one is paying bills. Businesses are suffering. How do you pay taxes when you have not been paid? So you can see that there are so many things that are going, but I hope that I don't want to start now. We shall talk about it at some point.
Indeed, I know as an economic expert, you really want to start crunching into these particular numbers. And Nurdin Kagai, lawyer, how are you doing this morning?
Well, good morning.
Weekend ilikuwa salama?
Kawaida.
Right, you're ready to kickstart this particular week?
Yes.
And definitely, Justice Juma, the party leader of Justice and Freedom Party
of Kenya.
Yes.
Yes, pleasure. Nice to meet you. Is our the bench, and good morning to fellow Kenyans. I think it's high time that we touch into our Kenyanness.
Indeed.
And make this country better, even if the forces of the challenges that we are facing are prevailing. But with the Kenyan resilience and the Kenyan spirit, I'm sure Kenya has a future and a hope.
All right.
Yes.
And we'll be getting into all these particular matters, whole matters. I want us to actually start with the whole insecurity in the North Rift. And before we start this particular conversation, I want us to listen to two sound bites by one President William Ruto and Usingishu Senator, that is Jackson Mandago. Speaking on our matters, the whole North Rift matters, insecurity. You can have them, then we can come back.
Nimemwambia Profesa Kindiki atoke ofisi Nairobi, aende aishi kule North Rift mpaka hiyo mambo ya wananchi kupoteza maisha yao iishe. Na tumeweka mpango kamili na ile uwezo wote wa serikali, tutahakikisha wale watu wajeuri wachache wako pale wanajaribu kutuonyesha jeuri, tutapimana na wao na tutahakikisha kwamba hakuna Mkenya anapoteza maisha yake, na tutahakikisha kwamba wakaribu kuharibu usalama wa taifa letu la Kenya, na sisi tutapambana na wao vilivyo.
Your Excellency, kama viongozi ya North Rift, kuna janga ilitokea kule Kainuk Turkana, tulipoteza maafisa wa usalama na tumekuwa na shida ya hiyo Kerio. Your Excellency, tunataka kukuomba kama amiri jeshi mkuu, hawa polisi wako huko pia wasaidiwe na ndege ili waweze kupambana na hiyo machangili. Na Your Excellency, ndege za polisi na ndege za KWS na ndege za forest ambazo katika ile serikali nyingine walikusanya zote na wakaweka kwa jeshi, wacha polisi wasimamie ndege yao ndio wafanye rapid response, tusipoteze askari wengi wakifanya mambo ya usalama huko.
All right, those particular sentiments by President William Ruto and Uasin Senator, that is Jackson Mandago, just at top of the iceberg of the kind of sentiments in the North Rift by area leaders and all that. And I want us to engage the panel this particular morning. Mm-hmm. Let me start with Juma.
Yes.
Why now all these particular attacks?
You see, the approach to security actually is a very crucial issue. Because the issue that is happening actually in the north is something that has not begun today. This thing is as old actually as over 100 years. And using a 3 months experience, whether you go and install Kindiki within the 3 months that he's been in office may not be an effective solution or approach to addressing insecurity. And the reasons to why TGR's report proposed some restorative approach to the past injustices was for us to address especially areas like this. And it's very sad that at this day and age we have not done anything effective to address this community, because even the approach that the president is trying to take is an approach that always faces rebellion, because the best law is a self-enforced law. Human beings have tendencies such that should you try to compel a human being towards a direction, if there is no consent, then definitely you will face what? And looking at the participant in this insecurity menace, actually it's a community. You look at the Pokot, look at the Turkana, and by the way, these governors when they were in office, like the previous ones, there seems to have been some consensus around these insecurity menace. And one would ask, what actually did these governors do, or what actually were these guys engaging in, and what is the source? And the type of, because I got a confession from a friend who happened to have been a bandit before, and he apparently sold his cows and went to school, and now got a job. And with the job, he is actually concerned about his fellows who are still in the bush, because those guys' level of understanding, all they know, because according to him, it's a culture. I know culture is a cult that is very difficult to eradicate unless there is proper education mechanism. If you do not educate them, if you have not put in place proper economic mechanisms to alleviate poverty, alternative economic practices. This is actually the area where the other day we got over 250,000 cubic meter in the reserve. And to date, the issues that have been affecting these areas where you talk about bandits and cultural rustling, they are cross-cutting. So even when you're sending Kindiki, it should actually have a proper national approach, because some also have to do with the boundary delimitation. The boundary clashes, how do we do? We'll be getting back to IEBC. How do we engage the government or people like IEBC to have effective boundary delimitation such that they act as also as conflict resolution to communities that keep on having perennial clashes due to boundaries.
Now that you mentioned that, I wanted to bring Kaga on this. You're listening to the president saying, I have directed Kindiki to go and set base there. So there's the whole communication from the leadership at top, from the head of state. And then it trickles down all the way to the security personnel who are there, the National Police Service down there. Is there a missing link between, from atop all the way down?
There are different issues if we're going to analyze the banditry attacks. Number one, there's a clip you didn't play by George Natembea. There's an allegation or allegations which he made, and if we just throw them under the carpet without actually investigating, then we'll never solve the issues. He says, one, the security officers who are there don't have allowances. That means he's talking about motivation. And if you look at that place, that is a hardship area. So obviously they need hardship allowance. Then he says the situation is so dire that they have formed an unholy alliance to the fact that they actually provide the bandits with ammunition and get food in return. What does that tell you as a person? It tells you that there's a disconnect. In as much as you're talking tough and everything, your communication does not work, because it means those officers who are there and they feel like they are alone. They're left there to either just face these people and just die at the end of the day. So we are not solving the issues. As he rightfully says, this thing didn't start yesterday. How we resolve is what really matters. When you have to look at why these attacks happen. For example, that place, there's no development. Those people feel like they have been secluded. It gives me vibes of MRC. Remember MRC Pwani Si Kenya? Because people felt they are more or less like detached from the government. If you look at that area, if most of those young people, he says there's a culture there, most of the young people from the age of 9, 10 have grown up using guns. So for you as a government, if you think the only way to stop that is to attack them, so violence for them is nothing. Life there means nothing. That is why if you threaten them, they are not scared. That is why the CS goes there, makes threatening remarks. He flies over, he comes back to Nairobi, the same day they attack. Showing him, the other day they burned some bushes. And you remember when you are doing GHC or history, used to smoke signals. They showed him, we're here, you can come. That tells you that your approach has to be different. If these people, all they know is violence, why don't you counter them with something different? For example, why don't you open up that place for economic activities? Why don't you build their schools, hospitals, make them have access to water? Because you see, you have to tell them, this cattle rustling you're doing is bad, but we offer this alternative. But for you, if you keep saying this thing is bad and the only way we'll stop you is fight you, they'll fight back, obviously.
But then in the government's defense, they'd say there's development cropping up. Like, for example, the LAPSET, the whole roads, roads leading all the way to South Sudan. But then some of these developments are still being attacked. People who work there, they're attacked. There's some Chinese industries and Chinese farms there, and international farms, and bandits still come to attack these particular developments.
There's something Natembeya said yesterday. He said, there are those who will never give you the real situation on the ground.
Okay.
Have to talk to this. I remember the former president once made a visit once there was an attack, and he asked for the guns to be returned from those who have the guns. You have to talk to these people first and foremost. I've been there, and I can tell you they are a bit wild. So if for you believe that force is the only way, believe you me, you will hit a rock, and the force that you're trying to exert on them will be exerted back on you. Like I rightfully said, it depends on the mechanism that you approach them with. And the other thing you have to realize that there are leaders who are sponsoring them. So as a government, you also have to check on that, because if you don't rein on those leaders as well, then you're doing nothing, because you cannot threaten them and then someone comes with a chopper and drops weapons and you don't do anything, because it's the same person, you sit with them on a table. But that means that cattle wrestling business is more or less like there's someone who's profiting, either in Nairobi or somewhere, because there's no way goats, cows are being stolen, and there's no center where they're being sold. So there has to be someone who's making a profit out of all that. So if you also rein on that, you'll be able to stop this. But if you keep talking tough, believe me, we'll talk tough today, tomorrow they attack.
And speaking of mechanisms, and obviously talking tough, Prof, Ruto's directive to have, says Kindiki set base in this particular area until this matter, the whole banditry is, it's over. Do you think this is the permanent solution, or it's just a band-aid?
No, of course, the issue in this area, North Rift, requires what is called anthropological approach rather than military approach. We have to understand what the reason why this is happening, and if you don't get your finger into that, whenever there is an anthropological issue, you approach it from military approach, then it just means you're going to fail. According to me, the president has even gone there himself and issued a threat and said, don't try me. Try me and you see. It never worked. And it goes again, sorry to say that, there are so many things that needs to be looked at the root cause of it. And if I can just give you analogy allowed here. There's a priest who used to live within the Maasai land, and he was a priest, he's a white man, who was living there for over years. So he used to listen to confessions. And listen to confessions, everyone used to come and say, I've stolen 10 ropes, I've stolen 20 ropes. So he lived there for over 50 years, and he thought that he was giving confession to among people who have stolen ropes. After leaving, he discovered, after someone briefed him by saying, when a Maasai comes and tells you, I've stolen 20 ropes, it means they raided 20 cows, but they went with the ropes, because cows are actually something that belongs to them. So like you said, this issue of cattle rustling and raiding, it was, when we were in primary school, we learned about something called cattle raiding. That raiding was not a sin. It was not illegal. It was a cultural practice. But it used to happen in very small towns where no one died. But now, because of the economic situations have become harsh, now it's becoming like an economic behavior rather than, if you like, a cultural issue. So I can tell you, without alternatives, these people only wake up to one thing: raid cows or cattle rustling. If I, as a professor, I know the only way to make money is wake up and pick a chalk and write. If you don't give me an alternative to that, I will only wake up again and pick a piece of chalk and write. This economic situation in Kenya is dire. When you ask a party leader here, why now? The issue is the economic situations are harsh. Look at the headlines. Everyone is hungry. Fuel, everything is going up. So with this situation is, if you don't change the benefits of cattle rustling, it will not change. In change management, you either change the benefits or the beneficiaries. So the beneficiaries are these young people who are doing cattle rustling. The benefits are the proceeds from cattle rustling. If those still remain the most attractively viable options, even if you stay there, doesn't help. Now, if you ask the question as to the companies which exist in these areas are Chinese, they're being attacked, all these development activities, the question is, what do these people benefit from? Someone who has been doing cattle rustling since they were born, have they gone to school? Do they have the qualification? And
all that particular thought there, we need to take our 7 a.m. Short break. We'll be right back to discuss all these particular matters. The whole, you did mention matters, armament and disarmament. That particular whole process. We'll be right back with that.
Usiyakubalie maumivu ya misuli kukatiza ratiba yako. Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
On the next episode of The Grind.
My name is Connie Tippis. I run a business called Double D's Lingerie. We specialize in innerwear and swimwear for busty ladies. That's everybody from cup size D to K cup. We really struggled to purchase bras when we were growing up. So it was just a thing of, it was a joke. We're like, you know what, why don't we start this on our own and start creating these things?
Monday, 6:30 p.m.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Right, just a minute past 7 a.m. You're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. And you can always talk to us right here on our socials below your screens. We're discussing matters insecurity in the North Rift, and not only in the North Rift, in the entire country. Quite a whole task for Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki. And we are discussing matters armament and disarmament. Before we get into that particular matters, Prof, I believe I had cut you short.
Yes.
All right, you can finish up.
Yeah, so what I was trying to say here is that when you want to change this security situation, we have to understand what is the basic of it. It has become economic. These young people believe that the government has ignored them. They've been abandoned to their own situation. So if we do not change the ecosystem, like I told you, you are setting up a Chinese company. How many of these young people are getting employment in these Chinese companies? In fact, I'm sorry to say that I'm a leader of Operation in Ugatuzi, and we believe on what is called a Solomonic economic model. This Solomonic economic model has been looking at how can you use local wisdom, local resources to solve the situations in a local way. And I'm not talking about something totally new. I'm talking about something which has been tried in Germany. It has solved out all the issues in Germany. In Germany, there's no national bank. In Germany, there's regional banks. If you are farming in an area, you set up a bank which is knowing how to sort out farmers' areas. For example, these guys hold cattle. Is there any cattle solution around it? Or you're just allowing that, saying they were holding cattle? So I'm trying to say we have to localize our solutions. We have to localize everything. And in fact, you can ask me, in this area, North Rift, when was the first school put there? Do you know that some people in Kenya here saw a school built there 40 years after independence? Now, do you know how much education can bring a lot of inequality? Stanley, I can tell you for free that the education that was accessed by the first family, that is Kenyatta, he was able to read a book. His first job was a meter reader in Nairobi Water Company. He earned the first coin. He knew how to read 1 to 10. That's why he was employed by Water Company.
Okay.
Now, somebody getting this education 40 years after Kenyatta, do you know the inequality which exists there? So without addressing those key issues, What was the first water pipe in this area? When did we first did these people see a tarmac road? All these things brings a lot of issues that need to be addressed from the root cause of it. And in fact, according to me, we need participative solution here. Why don't someone go sit with these people? I'm sure they are going to tell you, how do you sit with someone who is armed? But nevertheless, like you said, my brother here said that President Uhuru Kenyatta went and had a conversation with these people. Mm-hmm. And some of them were now willingly handing over these weapons to the government. Why do we go back from where they were handing over willingly the weapons to the government to where you are being told, you'll see, let us put Kindiki to camp here? We have behavioral changes that need to take place in these people. We have to teach them and try to look for better ways to bring back. And I can tell you, Stanley, with example, not theory here. I was once in Malindi Diocese as a missionary. I was working there and I saw so many girls who were doing prostitution in that area. We went and talked to them and told them, if you build a school to do textile, food production, will you be interested under the Catholic Church? And I can tell you, if you go to Catholic Church, Malindi Diocese, there is a place where I talk about professional training, where people are moved from the streets when they are prostitutes to where they are learning how to do textile, learning how to do
It's a whole change of behavior.
It's a whole change of behavior. And they saw there is an alternative. Even you, Stanley, I have a 5-year young boy. If I tell him, don't play on water, I have to tell him, play on soil.
Right, because I'm pretty sure you'll continue the whole stories on that. Benji Ndola, welcome.
Stanley, sorry I'm late. It was Super Bowl last night. I've literally slept 2 hours, and here I am. But I'll do my best. Nice to see party leader, my good friend Juma next to me. Yes, nice to see Nuruddin, my brother. And I didn't know Dr. Fred was a missionary. That's amazing.
Yes.
I'm also shocked. I'm also
8 years of mission work.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I can't talk about the missionary work that I know, but good morning to everyone.
It's been long since you and I were here on set.
Linda's been holding us down, and we've been doing a good job. It's been trending all over. Though I think our Twitter handle here got hacked or something.
Definitely.
I hope that's resolved. Yeah.
We're discussing matters insecurity in the North Rift.
Yeah.
And he speaks about the whole change of behavior.
Yeah.
And in the former regime, we did see the whole disarmament process and the bandits actually coming, and giving out the guns. But then, what has really changed?
Nothing has really changed, Stanley. And I'm going to be a little more blunt than my brother, Dr. Fred, and kind of go along the lines of former regional commissioner Natembeya, who is now Governor Trans Nzoia.
Yeah.
A man that means what he says and says what he means. A man committed to public service. You just saw his work, the way it was at that time. And you heard his sentiments yesterday. The whole insincerity around security. The whole pillaging of resources in security. Everybody knows that the big security bosses build fantastic investments all over the place with money, confidential expenditure meant for collecting intelligence, meant for training and arming. We have a security analyst that worked with us, Mwenda Mbijiwe, who disappeared. Up to today, nobody knows where he is, conceivably for discussing these kinds of things on broadcast. And so here we are, a country run by cartels, a country where we pay lip service, but what do we do as far as ensuring that resources get to the ground? And as the governor, Natembeya, said yesterday, and I've spoken about this thing for a very long time, the fact that even when the president moves around, especially the former president, allowances meant for something called coverage, extraneous allowance, risk allowance, security allowance, etc. The police officer in Kapenguria, in Kapedo, is earning the very same allowance as the traffic officer in Hurlingham, Nuruddin. Haki iko wapi? Haram. And so with that kind of setup and infrastructure, you're set to fail. And the governor was saying, we asked the president, former fourth president, for KDF. He gave us KDF for 10 days. We give them coordinates. We say, here we are, tumepata wahalifu, they're in this corner. KDF come and bomb the other corner. Because the cartels have an interest in the stolen cattle that ends up as meat in our butcheries. So here we are in the 21st century, Stanley, a modern country with so much potential that should be rising and moving and creating jobs and competing in the region and in the world.
And speaking of the 21st century...
But we are engaging in 17th century stuff.
And speaking of the
banditry.
And speaking of the 21st century, and you know, Juma, you said this thing started like 100 years ago.
100 years, right.
We're in the 21st century, so surely, definitely technology should be on the forefront of the government. Recently, we saw, you know, the launch of the drones.
Right.
And up to now, I'm not private to how the development of that is, but then should we be seeing more of, you know, technological advancements in the fight of banditry?
It is definitely by design, because the level of technology that we are having today, I was hosting some surveyors in my land, and the way they're using technology to determine boundaries.
Beacons.
Of course, is amazing. And you're talking about drones just to locate. This is Kenya, and the landmass of Kenya actually
it's quite huge.
Not that per se, because it's technologically we are within the. We enjoy the benefits of satellite that can help us. Combo through any corner within this nation, leave alone the deep sea. And if you see certain things are not being addressed, and we are talking about benefits, then you have to understand or question who actually is benefiting from this. Well, Africa has not been very privileged where resources are concerned. Of course, maybe in this case, we are talking about cattle as resources. And the external forces that keep on ravaging and raping African resources, actually, we know them. They've been outsiders, because a bandit or a Pokot, an innocent Kenyan citizen who don't manufacture guns, where do they get them from?
Yes.
And by the time it becomes so serious to a point that security officers on the ground are now crying for to the national government to protect them from these bandits, actually that showcases a major crisis, because the person who should be protecting you is the one who now needs protection. That exposes how enormous these things are. And I'm certain away from the cultural manipulation, there's definitely a political hand and external economic play, which all these individuals knows. And that is why when you hear them contradict themselves in the public, definitely you know where the answer lies. But if we really want to take this thing, because at this day and age, when you talk about 21st century, there are certain things would love to be identified with. As a president, I would be proud to lead a civil society and a civil country, such that even if you're having challenges, let our challenges be a little bit advanced.
Right.
But if it is still left at cattle rustling and gun wielding on issues that we can address, I would propose, because educating Pokotians the bandits, because they're not just Pokots only, needs to take a different approach. We have cases where you have to just individualize education. And this classroom learning, where you have to pull all the Maasais from pastoralism, you have to pull all the fishermen from the lake and put them in the class, may not be very effective when we are talking about addressing or bringing civility within the society, because education matters a lot. If people are able to understand what they need to be more competitive globally, and understand their human space in the human village, because as we are talking about wielding guns and not studying, the other external communities, like I mentioned in China, they're not joking. They're looking at that land and they're thinking of how they can occupy it due to their excessive population. And they are bringing, actually they've landed even on our roads, people from prisons. And the agenda is not a good agenda for, if you're looking at foreign policy, it's not a good agenda for this geographic location. And so they would they would definitely invest and make sure that there's chaos for them to do what? To occupy. So, and this requires a circumspect thinking leader who is thinking for posterity, because sometimes some of our leaders are affected by what I call Tumbocrat syndrome, and where they rather eat today and forget about what? tomorrow.
And speaking of policies, Kagai, recently a number of legislators have come forward and say that, when Parliament resumes, which is tomorrow, they'll pass and, have a move to have bills that, strongly punish these bandits. How should these MPs be, focusing on some of these bills? And will it really work?
In that same August house, there are those who sponsor that act of banditry. So if it starts from them, well and good. We have a penal code where they say if you're a thief, if you steal, you get convicted. That hasn't stopped people from stealing. That won't stop you from being mugged in town. All right. So changing the Terrorism Act and cut wrestling as a terrorism act, that doesn't change much. If
we were to have a court purely for banditry, will it so that it can hasten the whole process of how these cases are? Will it help?
It will help only if we actually make sure those who sponsor these acts actually face the full force of the law. If the intention is to open up a court, for example, as you say, or have a law where you only prosecute those who have the guns, who are actually facing the officers, then that law won't do any justice without actually tackling the issue here is who is sponsoring these people with ammunition, with guns at the end of the day. In as much as Natembeya told us there's an unholy alliance, that aside, then we've seen photos of choppers that drop guns. Whose chopper is that? We need to start from there. We've seen vehicles
where
that actually...
Where do these guns come from?
Where they come from, you realize. So, and then when we tackle that, we'll be able to show that we're actually fighting these acts of banditry. But at the end of the day, if we don't solve the social economic aspects of that area, believe you me, you will be witnessing these attacks day in, day out. And the one who will have the egg on his face will be the CS sent to live in a North Rift, in quotes, and he will end up looking like a situation Maguire. He won't solve anything at the end of the day.
You really had to mention Maguire there. Because of time, Prof, you can briefly, before you get into the weekend politics, briefly.
Yeah, for me, it is very clear that if we are not looking at the beneficiaries, like I told you, and tackle from there, let me tell you something that is always a big problem in this world of solving issues. They say when you have a hammer, you want to treat everything like a nail. So because that these people have power of the gun and the rest, they start looking at it, for example, from the point of view of a gun. Let me tell you where even there should be more insecurity, in Kibera. And I can tell you, if you look at the anthropological aspect of Kibera, why do you think that somebody has a kiosk which is carrying goods worth millions of shillings with no proper walling and no one sells from it? Can you understand why that happens? It is because the ecosystem of living. If I have a pharmacy which has got drugs worth 10 million shillings, the pharmacy is a container pharmacy that can be cut and somebody comes and takes the drugs. But I move from here and I buy Mama Mboga there, I buy Mboga here. I buy these people's things. So the ecosystem of the business shows that if anybody destroys my business, there's another impact on other people's aspects.
Right.
So there's self-security, because you know very well, the number of police to population is very low. And therefore, the issues to bring better security is by having a secure ecosystem where people believe we belong together.
Okay.
Before you address that aspect, nothing really works. Because there's a book we read when we were doing high school called Visiki. They said that there's a policeman who are defending people from cutting trees in a forest. And they never wanted this practice to end, because if it ended, their work was over. Because the benefits they're going to get was going to be over.
Okay, thank
you. So are there people who don't want this insecurity problem to be solved? Yes, of course. That's the people who have to start with.
Thank you, Prof, for that. I want us to get into matters, the future of the Jubilee Party. And this, even comes after recently the whole change-up in the leadership. But then before we get to that, I want us to listen to some few sound bites by the former President Uhuru Kenyatta and Jeremiah Kioni, Sabina Shege, to get to understand what is happening in the Jubilee Party. Then we can resume.
Ndipo mimi nasema, mimi nilimuunga mkono wakati huo, na bado nitaendelea kumuunga mkono kwa sababu mimi naamini yeye ni mtu wa ukweli, yeye ni mtu anataka kuunganisha Wakenya, yeye ni mtu anataka amani katika taifa letu, na ni demokrasia na haki yangu kusupport yule mtu mimi Sisi tuko pamoja na nyinyi. Mkitualika sisi sasa kazi yetu ni harambe hapa, sijui hii hapa, sijui hii kidogo hapa, labda mkiniitia kanyama.
Committee engages with the ruling coalition on the possibility of creating a working cooperation arrangement.
Fuata footstep za our party leader, because he told us that this nation is bigger than any one of us.
All right, there you have it. Benji, I'll start with you on this.
You know,
first really
you know, we're on a broadcast, so you know there's some things that you shouldn't even have to, you know, advise a president or a former president when it comes to decorum, when it comes to reality.
But then before you continue,
when it comes to reality,
why do you think he needs Jubilee Party at this point?
That's bizarre. That's absurd. Why would he? First of all, let us begin by calling a spade a spade. Jubilee Party heralded a failed regime. Uhuru wrecked Kenya's economy. I'm just saying this with all due respect and decorum. It's a fact. Look at the headline today. I don't write headlines. And this is relevant in Kenya today. Auctioning is left, right, and center. COVID came, and all the resources that came to alleviate COVID, you know what happened. That's a fact. And so he goes around there with the guy who he rigged in 2017, who said very openly that that was a rigged election. That's what the Supreme Court found. So he goes around with this guy that now he promised to help in 2022, and then he failed. So, I mean, how can you be so disrespectful of Kenyans, talking about your own constitutional right? It's just unbelievable. And the best template, Stanley, for the behavior of a head of state, and I've said this many a time, is the way Mwai Kibaki behaved. His comportment, his sense of purpose, his sense of duty as president, and then his discipline once he was out of office.
We'll actually get to that when we discuss the whole 6 months of Mwai.
You're running around talking about eating kanyama.
Allows me.
Prof, before you get into that,
and brainwashing all these laws.
Do you think there were any hits on the Jubilee Party now, and does it need to continue?
Do I think there are hits on Jubilee Party?
Yeah, on the
I mean,
whole
Stanley,
Jubilee
you know the reason people watch our show and the reason people watch me and follow online is because I'm a straight shooter. So, are you new in Kenya? Do you know who is William Ruto? Do you expect William Ruto to be asleep politically? Do you expect that William Ruto is not doing his thing to weaken these guys all over the place? The answer is yes. He's in fact, the question I saw the other day in mainstream media is, why is the president continuing to ramp up this kind of pressure behind the scenes while he was already... Ruto had the majorities before he was even sworn in. In fact, I like how we had all these processes going on, all right? We had the portal, we had the disputed bombers. The deputy president was moving like a victorious winner. During that process, we then had the announcement, right? And the challenge in court. While the challenge in court was going on, Ruto was forming his cabinet. I live in Kenya. I follow this thing daily and hourly. When the Supreme Court finished unanimously, he had already co-opted the parts of the opposition, like UDM, I believe. They just came out, for lack of a better word, shamelessly, fasting in the morning.
All right, Juma,
that's William Ruto.
Juma, what do you make of the whole change-up in the Jubilee Party's...
as a party leader, you would have asked me more of my party, Justice and Freedom Party, which where we believe, instead of discussing next election, we talk about next generation, where we believe in talking about populism and personalism. We talk about constitutionalism and functional institutions. And you see, we are not living in an island. They say functional institutions are synonymous with economic development. The moment institutions are not working, the economy fails. It's a simple fact scientifically. And they say major challenges to functional institutions are things like personalism and populism, where individuals become the law, they become the party, and the systems don't function. And when I talk about the system not functioning, that may mean that even the legislative assembly may not function, or executive may not function according to the frameworks, or the judiciary may not function according to the framework. You see, political parties in Kenya, or democracy in Kenya, is guided and protected by the Constitution. We have Electoral Acts 2010. We have Political Parties Act, which actually some faced certain amendments recently, which govern and protects how the political parties need to function. And by the way, before any political party engage in the electoral process, normally they must deposit with the electoral agency what we call code of conduct, a manner of which our political parties or aspirants should carry out themselves.
Let me cut you short. Ndolo was talking about the whole decorum of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and as a party leader of Jubilee, you are a party leader yourself.
Right.
How should a party leader have the decorum?
That's my point. That's
how should he or she be dealing with such kind of issues?
That's my point. Now you've gone to discuss individual, not the constitution and the function and the institutions. Because how should a political party function is within the framework of the constitutional provision. Actually, all these political parties have a constitutional bylaws that stipulates the functions of every leader, including the party leader. But now, there are certain bad manners also that needs to be addressed, because every political parties have membership clause and withdrawals of membership of a political party, and cases where a member can be expelled from a political party. When a political party member promote the values and the ideals of another political party, which they are not in coalition with, then that membership seems to, is deemed to cease because of such provisions. And should a party be in a coalition, and I think these are the bad manners we need to also remove, so that we don't make two wrongs don't make a right. When I'm recruiting members and campaigning for them to become or to be elected, there are certain ideals and there are certain manifestos that we present, which we would want to. And the moment somebody begin promoting an alternative manifesto that is not your political party's manifesto, then that person, if they have good conscience, should resign from that political party and identify with a party with similar ideals that they would want what they want to promote.
Are there any deliberations before this particular person resigns? That do you sit down with them and rather the
that is where now
the disciplinary committee say
the party has its own structure. Exactly, the party has its own structure to review.
Okay,
and including the disciplinary committee within the party. That's a prerogative of the political party. But the current bad manners and President, whether he's my friend, but the moments when there are better blows that hurt from a friend than kisses from an enemy. Yes. When you talk about sharpshooting, when there are bad manners within the political field, sometimes it's good to point them out. And I have pointed some out in the open. When you're violating Political Parties Act, especially even in merger and coalition signing, if somebody is a member of a specific coalition, and I am talking about respect of institution and constitutionalism, which all of us swear to uphold and defend, then I would function within the limits of the law that is provided by the law, or else the alternative is anarchy. Because if there is anarchy, then we will end up with the bandits, we will end up with violations, we will end up there will be no regard for constitution. So anyone who is promoting ideologies or violating political parties' code of conduct, and is esteeming, like if Kenya Kwanza raid Azimio coalition, a coalition has coalition membership agreement that every member is bound to, whether in Kenya Kwanza, whether in Azimio, whether in Justice and Freedom Party and its coalition partners. And all leaders who we have actually who swore by the Constitution to uphold the law should abide by that when they begin these bad manners. And that is when we go back to people's power who have delegated this right. And we tell people that mark out such type of parties, such type of individuals, they should not be earning your money as they break the law and violate the order that should be governing us. And these are the things that are actually motivating and instigating these violences that we're seeing sporadically. Kenyans are good people and they would rather follow the law, but if leaders with impunity keep on violating these laws, then we will not watch in silence. We will come out for them.
Right, we'll be getting into the whole what the party constitutions say each and every single party, and focusing on Jubilee party, and even having a party leader here with the Kagai. But then let's take a short break. We'll be right back with that and more.
TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Hey!
Kaluma King Herbal Lozenges zinazo nguvu maradufu kutuliza kikohozi, vidonda vya koo na mafua. Kaluma King ni shwari.
Tika mama huyo muharifu kaiba kuku zangu, vifaranga wangu na mayai zote pia kabeba. Aya, tika mama huyo.
Maumivu yakizidi, muone daktari.
On the next episode of The Realtor. Passion, consistency, and hard work is what got Esther Nderitu a seat in the contractor's seat.
You'll go to meetings and you meet yourself as the only lady in those meetings, and you really have to brave yourself through to talk as the main contractor.
Catch this episode of The Realtor as we celebrate yet another woman in real estate.
I didn't want to go more into the simple courses. I'll call them simple because they are not very technical.
Tuesday, 6:30 p.m.
Je, maumivu ya kichwa na kukosesha amani? Kaluma Strong hutuliza maumivu ya kichwa, maumivu ya mwili na hata huondoa joto jingi mwilini. Kaluma Strong ina aspirin kama kiungo. Maumivu yakizidi, muone daktari.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe. Quite interesting off-air sentiments here. And Kagai, let's talk about the party constitutions and how they really should be followed, and also a bunch of what party leaders are saying.
You see, political parties have constitutions, which actually guide them on how they need to operate, also guide the members, those in office, and et al. Now, also those who have actually been elected, courtesy of different political parties, are guided by the political party amended act. They amended the law before the elections. Now, what my brother here was talking about, bad manners, that is clearly covered under section 14 of that act. Clause A to E. It talks about what should happen to a member that actually sponsors ideals of another political party, if you want to defect. It talks about all that. Now, for me, I don't understand why people are agitated with seeing Uhuru with Raila. You see, at the end of the day, he is in Azimio. That is number one. And his party, which is the party leader, is still under Azimio. Raila was...
Azimio is a party.
Raila was his candidate at the end of the day.
And I remember during the funeral of Professor George, the late Prof. Magoha, when he stood up and he said,
yes, he's my party leader because he's the chairperson. Him is the chairperson of Azimio Council, right? So at the end of the day, if, for example, you see them together, why are you agitated? You see, now this is where the politics now comes in. The ideal situation for those in office would be for Uhuru and Raila to fizzle out into oblivion. That is the ideal situation. So that you have an easy way of running the country. That is a political way of getting rid of them, all right? So if, for example, they are seen together, there are those who will be uncomfortable. Reasons being only they know. So at the end of the day, for him to say that my party leader is Raila Odinga, there's nothing wrong about that. You see, we have to understand one thing. He is retired, all right? But it doesn't take away his rights under the Constitution. He still votes, even if he's retired. So he has a right to choose who he believes can be a good MP, a good MCA, a good governor, a senator, a president. So he still has rights, all right, as per the Constitution. So he can support whatever candidate he feels like supporting, and you cannot muzzle him for doing so. Now, the question here is, and we have to be honest with one another, the president, when he came into office, he said he wants a vibrant opposition, and we all congratulated that. But now he's moving away from that, and that is where a problem now emerges. When you see whatever is happening in Jubilee right now, it's more or less like you wreck it from within, so that, remember when the members of parliament were in State House last week, there was a statement on his handles where he said now they have agreed to help them in parliament. They have agreed to help support the government agenda in parliament. That takes you back to Uhuru's time where he had tyranny of numbers, where things like the security bills were passing, which ended up being unconstitutional. So what we are seeing is he wants a smooth pathway in parliament so he can be able to get 2/3 whenever he needs it. Because as it is, if we were to look at how things were, even after UDM joined, getting 2/3 was never going to be easy. So right now it's going to be an easy way, because now you have these people who have declared that they will support your agenda in parliament. And now that brings about what he talks about political bad manners. I don't understand this issue of you go for an election, there is a winner, there is a loser. The losers feel like they have to be so close to those who are in office so that they can be safe.
Jealousy.
It doesn't make sense, because at the end of the day, I do believe if you're a member of parliament, for example, you've been elected. You see, there's something we are being told, we go to status for development. That tells you, there's a discussion I had with Benji a long time ago, that tells you most of these people don't understand the functions and roles of these seats they look for.
Because hold that particular thought. We'll get into that. The whole Azimio rebels and what Raila Odinga was, telling them and giving them marching orders. Prof, I want us to get into the future of Jubilee. Recently, the Jubilee Party Secretary General, that is Jeremiah Kioni, and the Vice Chairman David Murath, they were suspended. And the former president Uhuru Kenyatta said, even though he is, no longer in active politics, but then he'll still be in the shadows there. What is the future of Jubilee according to you right now?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, let me say that this is not something new. After every election, normally, because you see there are some promises that Jubilee could make. There are some promises even other parties that were affiliated to Azimio coalition could make. But the point is that when they didn't get power, they cannot be able to meet them. And therefore, all the promises they were keeping these people together, the benefits they could get, no longer stands. And therefore, you realize that Jubilee Party will go and will lose everyone who was there for benefits, and only those who had Jubilee ideologies will remain. So as far as I'm concerned, that people who have Jubilee ideology, people believe in the Jubilee as a manifesto, as mission, and the rest. So those ones will stay with the party, but those who are there, whom they now call them Tumbocrats, will go. And I told you here, Stanley, before that, it's not that Kenyans people are not intelligent. Kenyans are among the most intellectually gifted people in the world. Why I'm saying so is that on average, pick any average Kenyan who got a C+, take them to Harvard, they'll beat those guys. I've seen it with my own eyes. But how comes when it comes to analyzing issues like politics and economy, we don't see it? It's because our intelligence gravitates towards the stomach. So where the stomach is fed, you see people who are very intelligent starting to explain to you things which don't make sense just because there's a where their stomach is fed. So for sure, Jubilee will go through that direction. And of course, I'm happy the president has said it very clearly, former president, that let those who want to go, go. Then from there, Jubilee will build. And if you look at the unity that is happening now between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, they are still saying, you're my party leader, meaning that Azimio is here to stay. He asked the people of Nyanza whether they want to leave Azimio. And of course, we cannot tell, but population shows they are still with Azimio. What shows that they want to see those who need to go to go. Raila said the same thing. His MPs who went, let them go, which means that time comes when you are being rendered and you have to know who is with you, then you start building from whom you have.
The question comes up: why is it that we are having a whole change in shift in basically some members saying we're going to support the government. Example is Aden Kinan saying Jubilee is going to support the government. Others are saying we are still stuck in Azimio. Is it matters leadership and not to party leader, but then. What is really happening here? Is it matters leadership?
Yeah. So, Sunny, allow me not to answer this question in a way. I know you are a news anchor.
Yeah.
But allow me not to be anchored so that I can explain to you the issue. You see it clearly.
Okay.
I told you one word to describe this country at the moment is abandoned. Abandonment. Because you see, when William Ruto ran for president, there are promises he made Kenyans. So now, if they are saying the economy was bad and he was deputy president, so issue is did he not know what was happening? And he was deputy president. So he knew if the economy was really bad the way he says, then he should have known. Then he says they knew. So if they knew, why were they giving promises they can't deliver? So abandonment here means that I told you before that Raila has gone into rallies claiming his win, which is abandoning his own people. Because look at what's happening. Fuel is high, electricity is high, food is high, school fees is high, healthcare is high, insecurity is high, taxes are high, temperature is high, everything is high, including infidelity in families. Everything is high. True. The only thing which is not high is income. No one is earning more money. In case actually people are losing income. These are the real issues in the country. Who is addressing them? Raila is addressing them by going to rallies, People's Baraza, isn't it? Now, let me ask you, is this where those issues can be addressed? The answer is no.
Yesterday, during the Nakuru Thanksgiving service, the president talked about economy. Will you say
just wait. That's how I'm going to go. Raila is addressing them People's Baraza. Now, Raila should be consolidating the MPs, put a bill in parliament on how to correct cost of living.
Yes.
Because that's the instrument he has.
Yes.
Raila should be telling people all these things about privatization is making noise about. What are the policies they're putting in bills, putting in parliament, using the mechanism he has?
Yes.
Coming up with legal initiatives how to do it. IBC. Now Operation Togatuzi is suggesting change in IBC. Has he come to contact us and said, Fred, how can we be able to amend the constitution to cure the issue of IBC?
So basically more action, less talk.
More action, less talk. Now, that's one side on the Azimio side, isn't it? The president's side insists that Raila is having a lot of, let's say, traction with these things of People's Baraza.
Yeah.
He's formed his counter People's Baraza in the name of Thanksgiving rallies. Now, he said he's going to, on Valentine's Day, pray for the economy. He's going to pray for drought. He's going to pray for rainfall. Now, the question here is, my brother, tell me any country where prayer has turned around the economy. I don't see any example anywhere. Even if you talk about the holy nation of Israel, the chosen people, to God liberating them from Egypt, God told Moses to do something. Put the stick on the sea, and the sea will come wide and you cross over.
And that's biblical.
Just wait. I'm trying to say we need to have real action. Now, what should the president be doing? The president should be telling us that in this budget, which call our supplementary budget, I'm proposing X, Y, Z to address your issues.
Right.
Of course, that is coming. While Raila Odinga should be saying, this budget or supplementary budget does not help cure the economy with X, Y, Z. These will be real issues that addresses the same thing. But prayer rallies doesn't happen. Gachaga has been talking about it. The whole Jubilee, Kenya Kwanza government is talking about prayers to address the economy. No single stroke of genius to address the issues. The other opposition is lost, but now the issue is who will pay for this price? Is
big question.
The person going to pay for it.
I'll respond in one sentence.
Okay.
But I don't know how much time you have. I'll respond in one sentence. The president is very aggressive and sharp. I'm not his spokesman, but William Ruto is working very hard. We follow everything that is happening. We talk to his people all the time. There's a popular show the other day that hosted the new young PSs and what have you. And you had a PS saying on national television, she arrived for a meeting at 7 a.m. at State House and she was a little late because there was already another meeting of business leaders wrapping up. There's a lot of things being done as a foundation. Yes, I concede it is not happening fast enough.
And speaking of a lot of things happening,
yes.
I want us to listen to a soundbite by Raila Odinga, who's a new leader, speaking about matters, rebels, and want us to discuss the whole, and still on matters, the whole Jubilee change-up. But this is brought up by some Jubilee MPs and ODM MPs,
yes.
Visiting the president in State House. Let us listen to that, and then we come back. You can finish up with your point, and then, right.
These members who have defected from Azimio coalition need to resign their positions and go. Then secondly, you see a new dangerous phenomenon developing that members of parliament are approaching the executive supposedly for development in their constituencies. What you see, these people must be seen for what they are, traitors in the cause of a revolution.
Right, he called them traitors. He also called them a particular word, quote unquote, hoes. And this speaks again volumes of what
I think is the word you're trying to say.
Yeah. What do you make of this, the whole visit?
At some point, Raila was my boss years back, and he's someone who has made a huge contribution, a courageous contribution. In fact, I'm looking at a TBT in the paper today. You know how they do the 30 years ago, and the years really do go fast. So 1992, George Anyona, Njeru Kathangu and these guys, Kitobu Manyara, Paul Mwite, Raila Odinga. This is the entire, team of young Turks then that really stood up to Moi. But you see, Raila has been on the stage too long. He has absolutely gotten all convoluted. And so he's lost quite some of the support. Because you could ask very sanely, Stanley. So it's true, in democracy we must have political discipline and party hygiene. But when he himself approached the party leader of Jubilee a few years ago, so what was he? He says these guys who are approaching the president are political prostitutes. When he actually claimed victory, the court gave him that. They gave him a new election, he ran away. So as the victor, who is not in office, he then went and approached the man who had stolen his victory. These are facts. So what was he? And when you're dealing with the Kenyatta family, you don't deal, it was actually called a hand check for those of us who are awake in this country. So you're leading by example, all right? Getting goodies from state. We all saw how Raila ran his campaign in 2022. Funded by the state, mostly. You're in media. You saw the vehicles. You saw the cars. You saw the state support. You saw all the state agencies and what they were trying to do and what they were trying to do against the other side. This is the man now standing on a pedestal to lecture anybody.
And actually, now that you mentioned that, gentlemen, I'm now curious. We did see Oburu and Orengo meet the president in Nyanza, during the whole Nyanza region. Why should it be different?
And prior to that,
yeah.
And again, you're a journalist, you have all these on record. I have on record Senator Oburu saying in black and white, and many others, but Senator Oburu, who's Raila's elder brother, we have always won. We have the people. We have only lacked something called system. And now we have system. We do have system. We have sat with the president in our home. He's our friend. We knew him from when he was a small boy. So this time around, it is Raila's time because we have the system.
Party leader, why should it be different?
These are the people now lecturing anyone on democracy.
When you personalize it, it becomes...
Just go on the record. No, use the record. We're using the record.
Well, we may not be the best minds when we are discussing individuals. But when we discuss ideas, especially more so that resonates around the interests of the citizen, I think we can easily get a consensus quick, which actually has a canon of reference, which is guided by the Constitution, and will be easy than when we just discuss individuals. And when we discuss institutions and their functionality, I think it will be also easy to hold individuals accountable, like when you're discussing Parliament. You know, this constitution that we have in current 2010 has provided for oversight role. I mean, I've given oversight role to the Parliament. Actually, the person who should not be found in bed at any given time should be the judiciary, the Parliament and the executive. What executive is trying to do with the Parliament, one would start questioning, what interests are you having? Unless somebody is evading accountability mechanisms. And what framework? The framework of how a Parliament and executive should be engaging are also provided for. These unstructured, personalized or relatives or nepotism or cronism, whatever you call them, whether tribalism, which actually have been some of the problems that this country is facing. And these are the issues, Benji, that we cannot dignify in a platform where citizens are also looking up to us for hope and for inspiration.
And education.
So that they may stand guided on how to hold accountable the leaders that they elect. The leaders whom we've elected, some of them have gone through processes that I'm calling now giving birth to bad manners. Bad manners are bad manners. Whether they're coming from executive, whether they're coming from a National Assembly, whether they're coming from judiciary, bad manners are bad manners. And what are the mechanisms to address this? One, as a party leader, I would not, and I know the cost of managing and maintaining a political party, I would not, at any given point, allow my party members who have been elected through my party office or my political party to all of a sudden abscond the ideologies that we've been fighting so dearly to implement when they're given opportunity. Because to me, I think that is a serious betrayal. It amounts to treason if somebody is talking about political parties' violation. And under their code of conducts that are governing this, by the way, before you are registered, some of these things are very cumbersome. Before registered political party registers you, they have to make sure that those clauses are clear. There are membership clauses and exiting clauses which are governing the political party. So when political party members choose to be all over and rowdy, like though there's no check and balance, there's political parties act, and there's also registered political parties which actually have the mandate to execute all these things should the political parties provide them. As
a leader of a party, sorry to cut you short, what do you make of Raila Odinga coming and to the podium and actually giving the quote-unquote rebels, as he puts it, marching orders, and tells him I
will do that anytime. There's no issue about that because he's addressing his party members.
Okay.
Actually, we do through memos. You do through meetings. Of course, Raila should do it in the actual way, so that it's not just about politics. The party has its own party organs and the structures that address such matters. When they bring them in the public, that becomes a different discussion. Should he work together with Uhuru? Well, they are in a coalition. A coalition, once a party has entered into a coalition with another political party, they can jointly promote their harmonized ideologies through the political parties, the coalition, a constitution or agreement, which also govern them on how they function, on the provisions of membership. And political parties do dialogue. There is something in the Constitution of Political Parties Act, Article 38, called PPLC, Political Parties Dialogue Platform, where all related organs all the 89 political parties choose 2 representatives, one or substantive and one alternate. And they meet in the presence of IEBC and registrar of political party, where they address issues that affect political parties. So it's not that the fact that we are competitors now that we don't meet. We do meet, and Constitution has provided provided mechanisms on how these people engage. Actually, currently, we are about to form to set up a panel to interview new IEBC commissioners, and political parties have a provision to send 1 representative, just as Parliament also have a provision to send 2 representatives. Public Service Commission will be sending 1. Religious community will be sending 1. Will be sending 2. And LSK will be sending 1. Now, all these are provided for constitutionally, such that our interaction, and this is the civility that Kenya actually have grown to. Kenya is a civilized country who have given to ourselves a constitution, and this is why we the people do delegate that sovereign authority through democratic process to various institutions whose functions are outlined within the constitution, whether it is executive, whether it is national, whether it is a National Assembly or Senate, whether it is judiciary and other commission. All of them are structured within the constitution, and everybody have their limits, and by the way, their checks and balances, such that when you're abusing your office, we the people, we can take that power back. So when there are bad manners, Benji,
yes,
from whichever quarter or political divide, there are accountability mechanisms, and they are measured, and that is what people should not take for granted. I, party leader of Justice and Freedom Party, when Uhuru Kenyatta and the now currently Azimio leader wanted to make a constitution through the manner that was not constitutional, I petitioned boundary delimitation. Actually, that is one petition that got unanimous support of all the judges from High Court all the way to Supreme Court. Only that one got all the seven judges support. Why? Because there were mechanisms that they were engaging on which were not constitutional. So if somebody is acting with impunity, or people are promoting anarchy, they should not forget that they are in an island. We are in a country where we are governed and ruled by the law. Even the president should power get over his head and forget that there is a constitution that is guiding us. We, the people, have mechanisms to enhance checks and balances to make sure that our civility remains. And that is why sovereignty of the people matters through the constitution that is governing us. So all these other personalized and tribalized or this chronism, to me, I think they are cheap talks, and it reduces dignified platform like this to talk about things that are not ideas that can move us forward, which Kenya direly need right now for us to move forward and address the issues that are affecting us.
Stanley, just a minute, because I don't want to move away from there. Just to agree with you, party leader, that absolutely, when we focus on building strong and working institutions and functioning institutions, discussions will change a lot in Kenya. That I was trying to tell you, that if people just knew what their functions are, and that if you build stronger institutions, institution of parliament, I told you, instead of going to asking for money or whatever that is, why don't you execute your role in parliament? This thing going to government, to State House, saying you are going to look for development in State House, it doesn't happen. MP has a lot of powers on how to bring development to people. And I can agree with you, that's why Operation Dogatuzi, we are not on the side of anyone political. In fact, ideologies of justice and peace seems to be very close to what we believe in at Operation Dogatuzi, by saying that, why don't we have these things for people? Can you see, Stanley, that now if as a governor you want money to go to your county, which the constitution has written, you have to write a letter trying to say how much priority you have in your county so that they put more money in your county than the other one. Why are we not following those procedures? A governor comes from whatever it is to the State House and saying, let us work together for my people's development. Yet you have 10 billion shillings a year and you are not focusing on how to get it. Why don't we look for how the national government can disburse money to the county government. Let the county government do their work. If systems, processes, institutions are functioning, we remove these things from who is the president. The dream of devolution was to not to take the importance of presidency so seriously. In fact, if we had devolution and it's working and working well, even the war between losing and winning at the presidency will be lowered because then you have resources in your own county. So I agree with you, party leader, that that's why even we are sponsoring the amendment with the constitution to address these issues, because we have seen a lot that has been personalized,
right?
And we need things to work.
All right, kindly hold that particular thought. Let's take it a short break at 8 a.m. Then we'll be right back to discuss the whole matters of the creation of the office of the opposition, which when Parliament resumes, it will be a key agenda on the August House and the future of the Azimio rebels, as Raila Odinga says. Keep it right here at Morning Cafe. We'll be right back with that.
The home of untold stories.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
Are you looking for a college that will shape your future career? At Candy College of Beauty and Applied Sciences, we offer advanced courses with personalized attention to our students. Come and get your diploma or certificate in cosmetology, hairdressing and beauty therapy, diploma in community development and social work, or certification in catering and accommodation operation. We also offer diploma in nutrition and dietetics and many more. All of our graduates have secured employment in the job market, while others have gone into entrepreneurship. What are you waiting for? Join us today. For more information on how you can enroll, visit us at the London Beauty Building, 5th floor, Taveta Road, Nairobi, or call us on 0726 031 109 or 0784 515 606. Facebook, Candy College of Beauty and Applied Sciences, or on Instagram, Candy College of Sciences. Our January intake is ongoing. Candy College of Beauty and Applied Sciences is the cutting edge college.
Usiyakubalie maumivu ya misuli kukatiza ratiba yako. Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Shhh. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Right, welcome back to Morning Cafe, and we're definitely discussing about the whole the future of Azimio and the rebels and the marching orders that were given by Azimio leader Raila Odinga. And even as the parliament resumes tomorrow, this sort of brings up a whole issue and question of President William Ruto banging these particular numbers. You could take a look at page 4 and page 4 of the Standard, and also the Daily Nation. We can have that briefly on your screens. On page 4 of the Daily Nation, it says, "I am out to unite Kenyans, not scuttle opposition." That is President William Ruto who is saying all this. This is, recently he held meetings at State House, Nairobi, with lawmakers from Jubilee and ODM parties. And in Standard gives you crunches those particular numbers of the balance of power in the National Assembly. Kagai, when you look at these particular numbers, what is the future of the Azimio rebels? And be it as it may, the fact that for ODM, it was only a section of them who met President William Ruto. We may not know the intricacies of how many actually intended to meet him. Maybe it was just the 10 were as representation. And obviously in Jubilee, there's a number who met him. What does this speak on, the whole balance of power in the National Assembly and the future of even Azimio as a party?
I have the Daily Nation with me here, and the headline is auctioned. Most MPs on auction. We have to be honest, and when we speak to Kenyans.
Yes.
You see, the sad reality is that people seek these seats without knowing what they want to go and do. That's why when they went for induction, the only thing they knew about was CDF. We are not attending this thing unless there is CDF.
Yes.
CDF, which they pilferage, they misappropriate at the end of the day. That is the problem. If that induction really was of any use, because you see, it gobbled a lot of the taxpayers' money, first and foremost, for them to be there, to be treated like kings and queens. If at all that induction had any relevance, the MPs that met the president later, after the induction, would have known that development is not in State House. That's number one. Number two, the sad reality is that, because I don't know if I'm fortunate or unfortunate, because I get to talk to most of these members of parliament. And I'll tell you for free that it's not just those who you saw there being paraded in State House. Some of these members of parliament, even in Azimio, some sneaking into State House. They just don't take photos.
Exactly.
And the sad reality is that, because I know and I've been told, the sad reality is that for you to be given something heavy, you have to take a photo. So if you're given something heavy, then you take a photo.
For archival, for in the future, you're showing you.
If you do not,
we're with you here.
If you refuse to take a photo, you don't get Uber money. It is true, and they know it at the end of the day. So the sad reality is that people don't understand the roles that they have. You see, there is this misconception where I'm a member of parliament, so we want to work with government for development. We have 3 arms of government. That is the executive, the legislature, and judiciary. The party leader here rightfully said, the parliament and the executive should never be in one bed. Once that happens, then we have lost the country. Because parliament is our representative. When a government, for example, is passing laws that are draconian, who will stop those laws if parliament is in bed with the executive? They have to stand and say, you know what, this is against the law. The sad reality is that when you even look at those who are in parliament right now, they say, you know what, we're in government, these guys are in opposition, their work is to check on our work. You forget that oversight is your role, even if you're in Kenya Kwanza. You have to oversight. The same government that you voted for, you have to oversight it. You have to give it wise counsel. Because if you don't, then when we go to elections, you will see bad things in front there. So at the end of the day, people need to understand their roles. It is a representation, legislation, and oversight. This issue of always crying for CDF, you see, the problem is they only cry for CDF. And that is why when we go to elections, they campaign around, I built 2 schools here, a latrine there, I did this. At the end of the day, which law did you pass in parliament? Or which one did you sponsor?
Actually, I've just seen an MP being auctioned here. So he's right. Here it is.
The thing is,
page 34, standard.
The sad reality is, when certain, you look at, for example, if you follow parliament, they are to resume, I think it's today or tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
When you follow parliament, for example, most of the time when serious issues are being handled, they're never in the house. They only come to vote, and most of them, they even ask that day, how are we voting? Oh, we're voting yes, we vote yes. They don't even understand what they're voting for. And that is your representative. So the question begs here is, where are we going to? You see, you talked about the rebels in Azimio. Those, the likes of Sabina Chege and Kanikiga et al. The sad reality, these are the people who were at the forefront of Raila's campaign. And Sabina actually gave him shoes to climb the mountain. Clearly there was case because she glided to Kenya Kwanza at the end of the day. The sad reality is that if Raila would have been declared the president, they'll be the one calling the shots. So we talk about what do you stand for? What ideologies do you have? For you to join a political party, for example, if I was to join his political party today, it's because I understand the ideals that they have, the manifesto they have, their vision, and I prescribe that vision, then I follow. But the sad reality is that we are tumbocrats, those who are in power. Where do I get my interest serviced? If it is there, I run there. And they forget anything else. And that is the sad, because if we had institutions, you're a nominated member of parliament in a party X that is in a certain coalition. You are busy propagating ideologies of party Y. You should lose that seat.
Right, and
if really we had serious institutions.
And speaking of the whole Democrats, same thing Raila Odinga was saying, people going to State House are just, feeding and, meeting their tumbos. Benji, when, President, consolidating these numbers for the benefit of the National Assembly and the Senate, so that his legislative agendas can actually be passed forward. But then on the other hand, is this a ploy to decrease the strength of the opposition? Even as Kagai says, oversight role is for everyone, be it in Kenya Kwanza or Azimio or whichever party you're in.
The problem with this country, Stanley, is lack of opportunity. The problem with this country, Fred, is resources. It's inspiring and encouraging that we have a free and independent media, because this Standard, I'm not the one who originated the Standard today. I can see my own friend here, a member of parliament, being auctioned, page 34. So you can imagine, this is someone who has spent money. Here he is in black and white. This is someone who has spent money on campaigns. You know, the reason the law requires that you gazette is so that it's a public document, it's public knowledge.
Yeah.
And this auction is not for a car. This is for a property which I estimate to be worth this property is worth maybe some 300 million shillings. It's a bunch of apartments. And so you can imagine the terrain with which we operate. You can imagine the vulnerability of somebody like that. This is somebody who worked at the port and was removed from the port by His Excellency the President for corruption charges. And before he was removed, you know how dramatic Uhuru can be. He said, there's a number you used to call, na hiyo namba ilizimwa. Tusemezani ukweli, and Nurdin Haji was there. So this is the kind of terrain that we operate, where it is really about resources. Even the voters want to be paid. They want to, because there are families to feed, all right? So they need, as Nurdin was saying, they need the bursaries. They need the CDF. And we are now in a country where poverty has become such a problem. You saw MP saying, we will not attend the conference until we're given CDF by force, regardless whether it is legal or constitutional. So it is a very sad reality, 60 years after independence, that our people are still poor. I applaud people like Fred because of what they're doing on the ground. Because you have to cultivate the ground. Where he's misguided is on this whole Raila misadventure. But on the other work that he does, if we had 100 more Freds, this country would be better. Because we have no opportunities for the youth, we have no jobs. We see people with masters and CPAK tamarking all over the place. So, and carrying placards in order to get a job even at a TV station as a cleaner. So in that kind of terrain, what hope is there for democracy, for independence of institutions, etc.? The judiciary itself is corrupt, Stanley. You know that. You have an employment case or a case of an asset, etc. Judges are still taking bribes. We've seen judges removed on bribes, and those are the ones who've been caught. Justice Tunoi, etc., etc. I mean, even Raila keeps saying repeatedly today, and he's a senior leader in this country, that the judiciary, mahakama bandia. The president himself, as president, has said repeatedly that the judiciary is a corrupt judiciary. So when you talk about the independent arms of government, how do you? In fact, let me quote him, Judges Diwakora. You see, for me, Fred, how I do my advocacy is simply by using their own words against them, evidence-based. So I'm not going to sit here ever one day and make up anything out of the sky.
Real quick, do you feel like, before you get into the scorecard of Kenya Kwanza 6 months later, because of time, do you feel like we need an opposition, the office of the opposition? And I feel like I'll jump the question throughout the gentlemen as we finalize this topic.
You know, leadership is not an office, eh? Leadership is not an office. Leadership is responsibility. Yes, it is good to organize. Yes, it is good to, but this is a constitution that we passed, a very good constitution. So it's not about an office per se. Part of what the problem is something I cannot really talk about on air, but because, I mean, Raila holds a record in the world of a national leader who has been rigged out. So the issue is bigger than we can talk about here. It is really about party discipline, about putting this country first, and really very few people, Stanley, very few leaders. I work with him on different political forums. But then also people like him change. They get there, they stop taking calls. They don't care about anyone, about anything. It's about money once again. And this is African behavior as it is. And it is only we Africans that can call it out and seek to change it. So once again,
Party leader,
respect for institutions.
Party leader, still on the same question. Do we really need the office of the opposition? This is going to be an agenda discussed by the MPs. It is one thing that has been proposed by President William Ruto. He really wants to have it there. But do we really need it? And how? What's the future of it going to look like? Even as we see, right here, rebels of, even Azimio being told, get out.
Well, the dangers of copy-pasting constitutional models, because that is where we were before. And people have walked along this road, and now they feel that the losers lose it all, and the structure of our political parties also are formulated are really not functioning as per the constitutional envisagement. Most of them are framed around individuals, where individuals is the party and the party is the individual. Such that the absence of that individual, the party ceases to be strong. And most of these individuals also surround themselves with sycophants or cronies, who, when it comes to deliverables and actually merit of that office, fails to function. And those are the challenges we are facing. And when you have professionals running parties, I'm sure whenever you call me, you'll get me, Benji. Even if I meet you on the road, we pick each other. We don't leave each other on the road. You know that.
Absolutely. He's a great guy.
So when parties are not managed or led professionally, according to the provisions of the Constitution, then we face the things that we are facing. And I think that's the clarion call which all of us should be united towards. Because the moment institutions are not functional, injury shall be felt on the economy. And the economy affects all of us. Right now, maybe it's Ruto who wants the diversions. Maybe Ruto is the one who wants his club members to remain active so that they keep on politicking. Because what stops him from focusing on deliveries or deliverables to the nation? Why would they be so quick to run to occupy the political space? And then people like us should be worried.
Yes.
Because it's our generation that is timing out. These people are chewing into our generation.
Right, gentlemen, we do have 15 minutes so that we can actually wrap up. I want us to get into, and still in the same matters, the whole, what you're talking about, the deliverables.
Right.
6 months ago, a day like today's, the 13th of September 2022, President William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua, then still not yet at this particular time,
right.
I remember we were still discussing how the environment at Kasarani Stadium is going to be, pardon me, and how they're going to take the podium and hand on Bible and have the odds. 6 months later today, what is the trajectory of the Kenya Kwanza government? Is it 5 months or 6?
5 months. September to February is 5. 5 months.
No, it's 6 months because let me first of all just give you what's happening here.
Okay.
I've told you the state of the nation has been abandoned, and there have been so many narrative which are meant to be called smoke screens to stop Kenyans from seeing the real truth of how the economy is being run. So just to state like this, that first of all, we know that most of the promises that were made by Kenya Kwanza, which was supposed to be 100 days, have not been met, if not all. At the same time, 6 months equals 10% of the presidency. So if you are 10% into your presidency, and there is no sign of any success. In fact, Stanley, I know Benji will defend that they are doing something, Yes. But I'm a footballer too. I'm also a rugby player.
Oh, really?
A team that will score, you will know by the first touch. If I give you a cross and you're a striker, how you tackle that first cross, it will determine that you're going to score. And when we pass the ball to Kenya Kwanza, you tell me that tackle that shows you we are getting somewhere.
Hustler Fund?
Hustler fund is illegal. You know, it's in court. The judges agreed with me that even the board cannot take oath of office.
Parliament is illegal.
So what I'm trying to say,
be real. Parliament is illegal.
Just give me time.
It's not constituted as per gender requirements.
So if you look at all this, the president has been pushed to go to the political scene by Raila Odinga. And Raila Odinga seems to be defining the Kenya Kwanza manifesto because he started People's Baraza. He has been followed by Thanksgiving rallies. His Thanksgiving rally is a way to address this economy. So in economic matrices, at the moment, one, I know when you talk about Eurobond, but
CDF is illegal.
They floated a bond, 39% subscription. During Uhuru's time, it was oversubscribed. The Treasury, CS, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u said 19 major government projects have stalled because lenders have refused to put money on the Kenyan economy. That is 668 billion shillings which have been drawn by the foreign investors.
NMS was illegal.
Now,
here's the budget allocation to NMS.
So if you look at those numbers, it's telling you that, that what is called trust in the economy is eroded. And when, you know, economics is very emotional. When you start talking about an economy which is deliberated, which is not working, you are telling somebody, put your money in an economy which is dying. This economy is in ICU. I'm telling you, put more money in an economy which is ICU with no sign of getting out. Okay. So I'm talking about this. I am so much disappointed that I haven't seen a single stroke of genius coming from the president and the whole government of Kenya Kwanza. In Kibaki's time, when he compares Kibaki's decorum, Kibaki was in a wheelchair and declared...
But he's a genius.
A stroke of genius.
But he's a genius. It's obvious.
I like that you mentioned that because I was actually going there with
and in comparison to what he's trying to say is decorum, we are not seeing somebody who has been a member of parliament for 20 years. He's been a minister for 10 years. He's been a deputy president for 10 years. That experience should turn around something. And in fact, the department where Kibaki was turned around the economy was education. He was a minister for education. We are still seeing someone who is smart in economics. Ruto is a smart guy in politics. No one doubts that. In fact, if Raila is not careful, he will beat him there every day, isn't it? But on economics, we haven't seen that genius. And I can tell you, if Kenya Kwanza want to succeed, let them listen to me right now, that only economic missile can save them now.
True.
And only economic missile thrown against them can bring them down. Right. If they don't fix it, they're going to go down.
Kagai, and what Prof was talking about, the whole comparisons, and still what Ndolo said, the whole decorum during Mwai Kibaki's time. When you look at this, Mwai Kibaki's first 6 months in office, what should now the Kenya Kwanza government pick on that?
You see, the Kenya Kwanza government should just focus on the cost of living. You see, the cost of living has skyrocketed because things have gone up. You look at electricity, you look at now, even you look at even now, the scarcity of water, and now there are amendments to water regulations, there are so many issues. But as he rightfully says, there are so many distractions to the things that are at the core of the common mananchi. You see, these barazas, as we are seeing, for example, courtesy of Azimio, they are talking about Chebukati, whistleblower. They are falling short of talking about, for example, how the government should look at the cost of living and send MPs who are going to come back on Tuesday to work on that. The Kenya Kwanza government as well now is focused on this Thanksgiving, as they call them. You see, the sad reality is that we thought things would change, but it is clear that in Kenya we win elections to plan for the next election. And that is why you're seeing realignments. Now you're seeing some MPs going for development in quotes. You see a certain group has decided, you know what, this guy started campaigning very early. We have a support base that doesn't know the way forward. So we have to keep them busy. So what do? Let us have rallies. Let us move around, telling our people, what we won. We don't recognize that person. Because even if you say don't recognize him, he's still in office, Mm-hmm. And the mechanisms of removing office are well known. So if you can't do that, you have to contend with him as being in office. So at the end of the day, we are treated to a sideshow. There are so many sideshows, and there are so many smoke screens to what ails the common man. Because at the end of the day, unless we address cost of living, we'll never go anywhere. Because now people are losing employment, as you look at it. And for the first time, the UNDP was showing we are now having urban to rural migration. That is a worrying sign. What does that tell you? There is no hope. Because it's becoming increasingly hard to live in the city because there are no jobs, there is no food. It's
unbelievable.
The access to healthcare is even a mess, you know. So if the government would not focus so much on Raila Odinga, you know, let him talk, because the constitution allows him to demonstrate, to picket, to talk. So you focus on your manifesto, because if he leads your way of thinking, or if he's the one who goes for on a path and you answer him, believe you me, he'll distract you for 5 years. Then he'll just wake up one day, pick your manifesto, and say, ABCD, was it done? You say no. EFGH, no. So at the end of the day, you will have lost the confidence of those who voted for you, who believed in the Hustler manifesto, the Hustler nation government. So let him do whatever he's doing. Avoid the smoke screens, avoid the distraction, because if you will have to be countering everything he says, then you're losing the plot. Because at the end of the day, he's not in office. You are.
Because of time, I think we do have like around 6 minutes. Party leader, and you'll also add on your final comments on this. I believe the 2022 general elections, you're also a presidential aspirant.
Right.
And I believe at this point, if you were to be president, you will have wanted us to look at your trajectory.
Exactly. I would not
focus
much more on fanfare and showmanship. I would not be focusing much more in the next election, but I would be thinking about the next generation. What do we need to do? Globally, we are not in isolation. This government is coming in a moment when the entire globe has actually been ravaged by a pandemic and serious major economic collapse, which necessitated various approaches which actually are not orthodox economically, because when we were having reliefs and all these subsidies, the intention was to bring back and resuscitate the economic state, and more so protect your citizen from the global community. And various countries have responded, and we can see, because since you're not in isolation, you can always learn from the best response. But some of us had advised that we should have individualized approach, which I would agree with you. There were major mismanagement on Uhuru's side. When we were establishing that committee, instead of prioritizing professionalism or merit, they populated it with friends and cronies. And at the end of the day, there was major corruption which have affected our economy seriously. You remember the lockdowns. Businesses closed, and they've not come back. This government and it needs to work very hard and very serious in this, because if you're looking at the morgues, unasikia morgues zimejaa because they are looking for alternatives. People are not focusing on that. If you're looking at the challenges Kenyans are going through, people are not focusing on that. No wonder they need political distraction to keep Kenyans off the actual reality. This government should have focused, because the moment you're removing subsidies, you need to start producing. They should have focused more on production and on manufacturing. And this is what is going to grow jobs. If you're not producing, if you're not manufacturing, in an environment where we have enormous potential. When you're talking about even food growth, even if you limit it just to corn only, why should we bring or buy fertilizer? These are things we can manufacture. So if this government narrow down to what I would call production and manufacturing, then we will create jobs, we will boost the strength of our economy, living standard will change. But this cannot occur in an environment where there is high taxation. So the moment you've picked the direction of high taxation, then just know that you're killing even the little industry we have left. And I think one would have to reconsider, even as a government, we will not take that path.
Because of time, Ndolo, your last words on the Kenya Kwanza scorecard.
Thank you again for having us, Stanley. Let me do a service to this nation by stating the obvious, that we have a fundamental lack of understanding of how an economy works. We have outstanding bills, pending bills for national government and county government, totaling about 600 billion shillings. This is money once paid to suppliers, once paid to county governments, to hospitals, etc. Can get medicines, can get suppliers paid. Suppliers have little cars that they use, small offices that they pay lights and whatnot in those offices. So 600 billion shillings. This is misappropriation. This is sabotage. And so this has to be sorted as a matter of priority. And why should we even have to advocate for that? Again, we have come from a culture of, President Uhuru heralded massive looting. Just looting, individual interest, raising down institutions.
Because of time, and I'll have to...
let's take an example from Turkey, where 130 warrants of arrest have been issued simply because when the earthquake happened, all the building inspectors and approvers who put up buildings that couldn't withstand earthquake, all of those, I'm reading the story here. So just look at that level of accountability, look at that level of enforcement, look at that level of seriousness. We really must save this country, or else it is dark days ahead.
All right, good things said, and a lot of sentiments. I know, because of time, because of Prof, I'm really out of time here.
I'll just take a minute. What I want to say is that let us do real Thanksgiving.
Okay.
In the US, there's a Thanksgiving for a purpose. Thanksgiving here should be about fixing the real Kenyan issues, and they have all been mentioned here. Let Kenyans not be taken to a waste of time. Let us focus on delivery. Yeah. The Thanksgiving to talk about, people want to talk about a lost election is not what we want to celebrate. We don't want to celebrate anything to do with someone who won an election becomes personal. Let us focus on Kenyan issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Kenya Kwanza.
Professor Fred. Party leader, any last quote for you?
Yes.
A very brief quote.
As it stands, I think Kenyans...
A small quote.
Yes, Kenyans, let's focus on leaders who have our interest at heart.
Okay.
Leaders who would sacrifice for us and serve us, not sacrifice us. Leaders who feels us, not leaders who pleases us. As it stands, most of them are thinking with their tummies instead of thinking visionary. With our interest at heart, and I think we still have opportunity to go for those leaders.
Right, thank you, gentlemen. Professor Fred Ogola, an economic expert and a governance expert, Nuruddin Kagai, lawyer, Justice Juma, party leader, Justice and Freedom Party, Benji Dolo, governance expert, and quite a Scott. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Have yourself